Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video, and I'm going to talk about one of the most controversial video games of the year. I am going to be talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard. Now, a lot of discussion around the numbers and the stats around this game. I will try to offer you some context to the stats, and the concurrent Steam player count is what a lot of people are focusing on, and depending on what side of the fence you are on, you guys can guess what I'm talking about. You will manipulate these stats. You will use these stats to validate your own argument. However, your boy is going to try to add some context to these stats because I see a lot of phrases being thrown out on social media. I see a lot of things being said on social media. Are the Dragon Age Veilguard early numbers good? I would personally say, and this is my opinion, I am going to offer you guys information and contextualize that information to an extent the best I can. I would say the numbers are incredibly disappointing. Given the fact that Dragon Age the Veilguard is the first Dragon Age game in a decade, BioWare has a history of dropping some of the most popular RPGs. Yes, BioWare has been cooked in their recent outings, but Dragon Age 1... less so Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age 3 were all fairly well received. Dragon Age the Veilguard is the latest entry in a franchise that has a lot behind it. However, right now the game is seeing at 61,842 concurrent players. As I am recording this video, we'll go on over to SteamDB and look at how the game is doing on there in terms of all-time player counts, because I've seen a lot of people say things like, this is the most successful EA released single-player game ever in terms of Steam concurrent player counts. I don't know if you guys realize that stat, very, very nice stat to say, incredibly misleading, however. What a misleading stat that is. So, if you guys are unaware, back in 2011, which by the way was a far different time in the PC gaming world than it is now, but back in 2011, EA didn't release their games on Steam. Starting with 2011, I believe Dragon Age 2 was released on Steam for a little bit, then it got pulled, and EA tried to pop off with their own launcher. It was only after the release of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order that they had released a big single-player game on Steam day one. The comparison points as far as single-player experiences go that EA has dropped would be Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which released in 2019. I would argue that was also a very different time in PC gaming when you go to fall of 2019 versus now. I think with the world shutting down, got a lot of people. It just changed the game a lot for PC gaming. I think the last 3 to 4 years have seen exponential growth. But Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Dead Space Remake, which we know wasn't that great commercially, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which we'll get to Jedi Survivor. Okay, so it has been those 3 games. I guess that's fairly good, right? That's a fairly cool stat. Guys, this is a big RPG, the first Dragon Age game in a decade, and you are peaking at 70,000 concurrent players. How about we compare it to some of its contemporaries? How about we compare it to some of the games that came out recently? I'll pull up a Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, which, by the way, was 4 years after its initial release. It came out on PC, and it peaked at 77,000 concurrent players. Okay, that's not good enough for you? How about Metaphor ReFantazio? That's a game that's a JRPG, traditionally not the genre that PC gamers will gravitate towards, certainly growing, but not necessarily the genre that is entrenched in PC gaming. That game peaked at 86,000 concurrent players, so considerably higher than Dragon Age Veilguard. And those, I would say, are more mid-level game releases. A Ghost of Tsushima, which, for its multiplayer, requires account linking, and Metaphor, which, as great of a game as that is, a contender for Game of the Year, it's a niche JRPG that isn't going to resonate as strongly with the PC audience. I think we all know this. Now, if you compare it to other big Western RPGs, boy, oh boy, you're getting into some dicey territory. How about Black Myth Wukong? Well, we know that game peaked at over 2 million concurrent players, so maybe that's not a fair comparison. Baldur's Gate 3, I see that comparison thrown out a lot. 900,000 concurrent players for that game. Sure, I didn't expect Dragon Age Veilguard to be anywhere near the success of Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm just giving you guys the information, and you do with it what you want to do with it. Cyberpunk 2077, if we go to that, I don't think it's that fair to compare Cyberpunk 2077 to any game based on its initial launch, because Cyberpunk, if you remember when Cyberpunk was coming out, that game had a grotesque amount of anticipation and hype around it, but How about we compare it to when Phantom Liberty came out? I feel like that's a fairly good comparison point. And when Phantom Liberty came out, Cyberpunk jumped to 259,000 concurrent players, and it went to 274K in October of 2023. When it launched, it was over 1 million concurrent players. I didn't expect Dragon Age to get close to that, but I actually think one of the more fair games to compare Dragon Age to would be something like Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 was a follow-up title to a action RPG that came out, in like 2012, 2013, so a big layoff, and it was one of those games that had built up some anticipation and hype around it as far as people wanting to see a sequel. That game peaked at 228,000 concurrent players, and that's, again, falls in a similar line in being a single-player action RPG. So that game peaked at 228k, and I would say that Dragon Age as an IP is way bigger than Dragon's Dogma, but just to give you an idea, Dogma 2 peaked at 228k, over 3 times the amount that Dragon Age Veilguard peaked at. I think that's a very, very interesting stat to look at, and one that, you know, of similar ilk, so to speak, that the games are. You know, you could compare it to games like Tekken 8, games like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, those games that generally don't resonate as much on PC. And yeah, Dragon Age did beat those games, but I'm looking at it from the lens of Dragon Age. Like, bro, it's Dragon Age. This was a huge IP, and it's the first Dragon Age in a decade, and peaking at 70k concurrent players for an IP of this magnitude, I'm sorry, I just don't think that's that good of a number. I think it's pretty bad, to be perfectly honest. Guys, like, this is why when you take stats and you say nice things like, oh, this is the most played single-player EA release in history on Steam, that's not contextualizing it whatsoever. Okay, you beat Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Star Wars Jedi Survivor was a $70 game versus a $60 game, which I do think matters. It peaked at 67,855 players. Oh, and by the way, it was legitimately one of, if not the worst PC port of all time. This is the issue when you look at data sets. Very few people actually contextualize data sets and just throw out fun things to say. Like, you guys, this is the problem when you look at data like Steam concurrent player counts. I love that data like this is visible to everybody. However, it's very easy to take data like this and just completely manipulate it and tell the story that you want it to tell. If I personally was to assess these numbers, I think this is a big disappointment. 70,000 concurrent players for a game that's a day one release on PC. It's not like a delayed release like Final Fantasy 16 was. It's a day one release on PC. And remember, they don't have things like needing EA access or the EA launcher and linking your EA account. You don't need to do that. They actually did a lot of things that I'm very appreciative that they did it, but other games that EA released did not do. And yes, it beat out Jedi Survivor. I think everybody, based on Veilguard, can assess that this game is orders of magnitude a better port than Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Like, if that's where we're at, you guys, that we're comparing Veilguard's numbers to Jedi Survivor, that is ridiculous. I think we compare it to the games that were released well on PC, you know, good PC versions, and also, like, of IPs that are notable. We're talking about Dragon Age. This is an IP with a history, with a lineage attached to it, and sure, I'm not expecting it to hit 300,000 concurrent players. However, I would argue that if this was a real top-tier BioWare game where people were excited for it and BioWare didn't erode a lot of its goodwill, 300,000 isn't this unattainable number. 70,000 for a AAA action RPG like this, I'm sorry, I just don't think that's good. Now, if you want to disagree with me on that and you have points to back up, I'm totally open to that conversation, but I just want to offer some context to these data where I think a lot of people are going to look numbers like this and already throw out that, oh, this game is incredibly successful, when I wouldn't go that far. I don't think it is. Again, I think Ghost of Tsushima peaking at 77,000 4 years after its release tells you a lot about that. Sure, Dragon Age did beat out games like God of War Ragnarok, which had mandatory account linking, which I do think is a huge issue. It beat out Horizon Forbidden West. It beat out Final Fantasy 16. All of those games were delayed launches. It beat out Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which, you know, Like a Dragon, I love Like a Dragon. It's not a Dragon Age, especially over here in the West. It didn't beat out Metaphor, though, which was a brand new JRPG on PC. It didn't beat out a lot of those other big titles that have come out this year that I think Western gamers are going to more so gravitate towards. Even if you remember, Black Myth Wukong at certain times of the day would fall off in terms of its concurrent player count initially, and that's because, like, as far as the time zone works, like, China, it was like, you know, people were in bed, but it was still well over, like, 150k. I'm sorry, I don't think this is a good number for Veilguard, and I wanted to offer some context to it because I think it's very, very easy, and I've said this well before Veilguard came out, and I've been talking about it a lot as it's become more and more popular to look at data like these Steam concurrent player counts, and we could take this information and then spin a narrative attached to it. Very easy to do. I just wanted to offer you guys some context, and I don't think this is a great number. What I would have think was a totally good number would have been like 150 to 180k. I think that would have been a solid number. 70,000 on the other hand, I don't think that's a good number whatsoever, but I'm sure people will get mad at this video. It's my opinion, but I am offering you guys context to that opinion, where I think a lot of the, it's the best selling or most played EA game, single player EA game. While that's true, it doesn't tell the whole story, especially when your biggest comparison point is legitimately one of, if not the worst PC port of all time in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And prior to that, what are you talking about? You don't even have Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda to compare it to because those were Origin exclusives. You're going back to 2013. No, Mass Effect 3 was a Origin exclusive as well. I think Mass Effect 2 may have been that time. That's 2010, you guys. I don't even know if we got data like that as far as peak concurrent player counts in 2010. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think this was important to talk about. And, you know, I have the game. I do own Dragon Age Veilguard. EA gave me a copy of the game, and I will certainly play it. I'm not here to say the game is bad or anything like that. Far from it. But as far as understanding data, I don't think this is a successful number whatsoever. Can it grow? Absolutely. I personally don't think it will. I think it's actually going to be one of those games that doesn't grow a lot, and I think come this weekend, it'll be at this 70,000 level. It might even fall a little bit. And right now, it's at 61,000. I just don't see this as a very good number. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Interested to hear your guys' take. Honestly, I'm trying to be as objective as possible and just give you the information that's pointed out to you and not trying to spin it. Comparing it to the big games that came out this year, not to EA's other single-player game that came out last year, which was one of the worst, if not the worst PC port of all time. You know, we have to choose good comparison points, and I think if you look at a Tsushima that had 77,000 concurrent players and was a 4-year delayed release, that tells you a lot. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, thanks for watching. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.